Public Safety Committee meeting for August 4th, 2025. Counselor Gwaltney.
Here.
Wolverton.
Here.
Frant.
Here.
Nelms.
Here.
Harden.
Here.
Everybody's here.
Thank you, sir. We have a quorum, so at this time I'll entertain a motion to dispense of the reading and approve of the minutes from the Public Safety Committee meeting from July 21st. Motion from Counselor Wolverton.
So moved. I mean, second.
Second by Counselor Nelms. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 5-0. Under old business, we have one item, 34-425, request for discussion related to safety measures at the intersection of Oxmoor and St. Charles, coming to us from Mr. Adams, the city manager, and kind of Mr. Smith. So I guess we're going to do this in two parts, right? So
the recommendation that I had was, because of the budget requirements for residential parking, that we split this up so we can move forward with the engineered design. And if any requirements are needed in that we could possibly move that into a budget cycle if required, but there could be enough funds to start things. And so it'd be smart to go ahead and move forward with the engineered design and be able to do some restriping or anything like that the committee approves.
Brian, do you have the engineering PDFs?
He does.
Oh, there we go. So let's talk about this item first. Do you want to walk us through the committee and the council, and I know we've got a business owner in the room as well.
I certainly can. So Lynn came to me and said, I want you to focus on pedestrian safety and the way traffic maneuvers through this intersection at Oxmoor and St. Charles. I had looked at this a couple of years ago at length. I wanted to get a third-party engineering firm who's more familiar with traffic components and safety, and specifically pedestrian safety. So we really looked at this for pedestrians, right? This is a highly trafficked area, lots of people walk through. And this is what we came up with. First, the problem are the diagonal crosswalks. So you see one here at Broadway and then at St. Charles, how they're angled, right? Creates a really long path for folks to cross the street, creates weird angles for cars who are trying to turn into them. They're not crossing at right angles. So that's the easy solution. So this was phase one. There are 3 phases, by the way. So phase one includes a bulb out here and a bulb out there. That's what you see in beige or pink or orange. So really the work in what we call phase one is all happening right here at St. Charles. And it also gets rid of this left turn lane into the alley and creates a little bit more space, traffic space along Oxmoor. Okay, phase two.
So before you move on that, the discussion on that issue was, where is the loading and unloading going to be doing for all the restaurants there? Because everybody in the committee was in agreement that area along St. Charles on Odie's would become a no marking, no loading zone, no parking, no loading zone. And so where the loading occurs, it would have to be like a restricted thing where in the morning there's no parking in front of those structures, so where all that diagonal parking is could be loading and unloading. But that was a concern by not having a hash mark in the middle where the turn lane was, that you lose that ability to have loading and unloading in the center. And so there's really no loading and unloading for vehicles if we do that. So that was the only issue on that part right there.
So what are you recommending it when they, like one place has breakfast?
Yeah,
so we're
I mean,
gonna have
that's
people there in the mornings.
I understand, and the problem comes down to, in the morning, you're gonna have to, you have parking on the side there, but it comes down to, can you even coordinate for the businesses to have all their people, because they can't control the delivery schedule as well as we thought they may be able to. A lot of these places have very large distribution networks. If you see the 18-wheelers going in and out, that's a pretty big truck loading and unloading stuff, and it depends on how they load it up for them. So there's a big issue in all of these phases of where the loading and unloading zone becomes. And not to mention there's other questions for other areas for creating driver takeout areas too. So those are difficult things for us to discuss in this.
Right. And so that was not, so I look at this and I don't
Purely
see.
pedestrian safety.
Yeah, I don't see loading and unloading, right? All I see is a pedestrian comes right here and can be backed over by a car who's trying to leave the area because there is no, there's no island there, there's no buffer.
Can I ask a question about this phase, or would you rather go through it all first?
Yeah, you can certainly.
So, can you just explain the logic behind not relocating the crosswalk to the western side of the intersection? The crosswalk across.
This
Oxmoor?
crosswalk?
Yes.
To here?
Yes.
Because there's not really a, well, the honest answer is people were gonna cross here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
One of the early solutions was to get rid of this crosswalk altogether, and make folks cross at Broadway. But I think what we decided was there are so many children, especially in the mornings and afternoon walking to and from Edgewood through this alley,
Mhm.
that are gonna cross there.
And I mean, that's why I wanted to ask too,
Yeah.
because I mean, if it was on the west side, it seems like it would even be closer to the alley, and if that's one of the primary uses, that just wanted to know the rationale of that. Thanks.
All right, Brian. Okay, so this is number 2, so this is more work, that has the same crosswalks, but it also does work at Broadway, where we straighten up this crosswalk. We lose 2 parking spaces, but we pick up 5 or so here. But we also close this parking lot in front of Big Spoon.
close.
And you
no
just have it
parking
on
at
the
all.
access point.
Like they would potentially be able to come in this direction and be able to fit some vehicles in there, but,
Yeah, the grade is too steep, I think, on that.
That seems
west
On
side.
that side.
So
So if
it-
I'm that owner, I wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah, if I were one of those businesses, I would not.
So in this
not.
phase, one of the things we talked about is instead of the parking spaces going, you make that the loading zone.
right, you would create loading here.
But the real thing there is if you see that, that's all sidewalk that's protecting pedestrians from any kind of risks.
I just think that those
Yeah.
business owners who have their businesses right there with parking
Yeah.
spaces are not gonna want their parking spaces to go away.
Right, but, I mean, we could even reserve these for those businesses.
Yeah.
It's just a really bad
That
idea.
increases enforcement, and that's just gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
I think phase 1, and I think you have one more phase, or is it
I have
2?
one more phase.
I think phase 1 is obviously logical because it solves problems with that intersection. Before we proceeded with anything like phase 2, we would need to go meet with the businesses over there. And I know many of the businesses take their deliveries very early, as I go through there really early in the morning, and they're often parked in the spots today, ferrying stuff into a couple of the different ones. Taco Mama takes deliveries early. I think Frothy Monkey takes deliveries very early, as does Ruby Sunshine. Yeah.
I do like, I
it'd
do
be
like
worth having
straightening
a
up the,
conversation with the business owners.
straightening up the crosswalks is a good thing.
The crosswalk here?
Yeah, yeah. I do like
So we would
straightening.
lose those 2 parking spaces, but we added them back here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go to the 3rd phase, Brian.
But you can do that without, you could not close off, you can't add those parking spaces without closing off that parking in front of Big Spoon.
That's correct. I mean, the parking space, we
Yeah.
already have
There are already some there.
one or 2 there
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr.
third-
Harris?
I'm not seeing it, you're taking out those 2 by the crosswalk and Broadway. Where are you adding your more?
So we would be adding 5 here. Yeah, we would add 5 here.
I'm
Because,
not, I mean, I know I don't get them wrong, but I'm not saying it would be something that, you don't need to take away any parking spaces.
Are these,
That's not it.
are those already parked, the spaces that are down here in front of the apartments, those are already there, right?
no, we just went to phase 3.
Oh,
This is
sorry,
phase
okay,
3.
okay, got it, sorry.
And mind you, in busy times, those invisible parking spaces are already there.
Yeah, I was about
on
to
the
say.
west. Yeah.
Yeah, people park there anyway.
Right. So phase 3 adds a bulb out here, just kind of narrows down Broadway, and then it adds parking on. So we're taking out a left turn lane here.
Yeah.
We're adding parking through here.
And then adding a bulb out again right there next to the alley.
That's correct.
On both sides of that.
So let me ask a question. With the crosswalk that gets rid of 2 spaces, if we, and I know people are gonna do what they do, and sometimes you just can't stop them. But if everybody used the right crosswalk with, I mean, not that we could force that to happen, but are you convinced that if we got rid of that one, people still are gonna walk across right there?
They are. I mean, people cross all, you know, they just park and they just walk across the street.
And especially in the afternoons with the kids coming from Edgewood.
Gail, you know, we had to put a bollard at the corner of our building where it is now because cars, there are no parking spots right in front of Odie's patio right there. Right, it's a fire lane, I can't remember exactly what it is.
Right, it's striped
crosshatch.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we still see, like, our bollard has been hit like half a dozen times because cars cut that corner, and that, to me, when people walk across those parking lots, they're never walking to the crosswalk, and myself included, I'm never walking to the crosswalk to cross
about
St.
half
Charles.
Oh, you
We're-
mean from there to there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think the best thing about this plan is that sidewalk being extended down into Oxmoor. I think that will help a lot because cars cut that corner where that crosshatch is.
Yeah.
And don't see people walking, especially walking out of
The parking
downtown
lots.
Edgewood to the parking lot. I've seen a lot of close calls, kids especially.
So I agree with part of that. I'm the resident that brought this to the attention originally because my 8-year-old and his 20-year-old nanny were hit as a pedestrian in this crosswalk, crossing appropriately as they were supposed to. And as a resident, the big problem is, yes, that crosswalk is awkwardly placed currently. And where people turn near Odie's is very awkward because they either cut in or because of that loading zone there, there's a large truck or a car picking up to go or what have you. People that are turning from Oxmoor right into St. Charles are turning into the oncoming traffic lane blindly, into pedestrians and into oncoming cars. And so that loading zone there is really a problem for safety. And there has to be somewhere for places to load. But a giant 18-wheeler there where cars are coming into each other blindly and pedestrians there is a huge safety issue. And so that's what I originally brought to the committee, is, you know, I don't want to lose any parking places. Parking is a separate issue that we've brought to the council. And so I don't feel strongly about that, but I think that something needs to be done.
If I could bring up a
because
side
he ended
note.
up at Odie's getting no care.
Yeah.
If I could bring up a side note, to me, parking is going to be a little bit less because we're actively working a parking garage structure. The biggest problem with that is it's an extra block away, and we know people don't like to walk that extra block. And so just know that that's actively being worked. There's effort to allow parking to be somewhere else, and it's a reasonable distance away for everybody. I know myself, I could use the steps, but the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk to is, in this case, it was brought up by the committee that we should have some bollards here and over here. Just, there's nothing there to protect them other than everybody's goodwill. If something accident-wise was to happen in that intersection, to put a couple bollards up, I think that's also something reasonably we can afford to do in the next couple of weeks also.
Somebody pull right through there and hit those tables.
We've got the black iron fence that's, I mean,
Yeah, but
that's
it's,
not even been there that long either.
Well, and I might add, I mean, it does look good from a pedestrian point of view, better, but, you know, living on St. Charles, you know, if I'm driving east on Oxmoor, coming through that intersection and I need to turn left, there are a lot of times when there's a lot of traffic, and if I'm waiting on traffic and there's no turn lane anymore, you know, I'll be holding up traffic for a while. I don't know if this is, you know, if we're looking at this purely from, you know, pedestrian movement, and
That's really gonna back up.
yeah, it would.
It'll back up even worse with 5 parallel spots right there. Right side.
So,
we don't have a turn lane.
interim
we don't turn
solution,
right.
There's a turn lane there now.
Huh?
There's a turn lane there
taking turn
No,
lanes
but
out
if we
does.
take it away, can we do a light?
There's a light there.
So what you're saying is we need more room for
Oh, it
vehicles
turns
to
lights.
maneuver around.
Well, I'm just
So-
saying that this is a major thoroughfare, east-west thoroughfare, and there's tons of traffic and, you know, we have, it's just a potential
just that
thing to
one way.
consider.
So an interim solution, and trust me, I do believe in these structural build-outs.
Yeah.
Shortening and straightening the crosswalks. But in the interim, as we're figuring out the finances of doing that, if we restripe, get rid of the left turn lane into this alley and mark it no left turn, you still have the space we're talking about. And if everybody remembers, some of the complaints is, when these vehicles are trucks, they're sticking out here anyway, and they're already in the left turn lane. And so it's one of those things, just opening up that space for the traffic to flow by not having a left turn. So between now and when we could say in the budget that we could afford to do even phase one with the build-outs, we could paint that stripe there and we could get rid of the left turn lane. And we do have the onus to talk to the businesses to find out if we make a no parking in front of here for a loading zone, what's the timing on that so that we meet their needs for loading? We don't know what the delivery schedules can be.
Well, and I think the second part of the delivery piece is the meeting with the business owners, because we do have the city parking lot that is between, I don't know the name of I'm blanking on one of the tenants in the building, but it's basically next to, yeah, it's right here next to Ruby Sunshine. So we have that for deliveries that can be restricted in the morning. We could also restrict our parking lot, because you're not allowed to park there overnight anyway, over the old Wade parking lots as well. So, but I think that needs to be a discussion point. So I think we can all agree on phase one for now. Cale, do you have engineering funds for engineering services on this? So we could get, or do you need it?
I would need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We also have funds left over from our Oxmoor Road Diet project, probably.
We do, but that,
We may not get a
that money
lease.
can't be moved into the general.
Yeah.
Cal,
We need to hold that money because we may not get a lease.
We looked at
Maybe
the
still
parking,
build
like
it.
the parking study, and we did traffic through here and all that, or is that old news?
We assessed.
We've done parking counts.
Yeah, and we've done a traffic study through here. I want to say it was the end of last term, because Kimley Horn came in and assessed the three main thoroughfares, which drove a lot of the changes on Valley.
Right.
And our main arteries are Lakeshore, Oxmoor, and Valley to move people to the city.
And to your point, Jody, we flew a drone on a Thursday at different times of the day to figure out what occupancy rates. I don't have that information here.
So for phase one, send this to budget for funding.
Yeah, but I think the committee can make a recommendation to do some restriping, like I mentioned, between now and when it's approved in the budget for further work. And I think that'll cover some of it, which would be, you know, the no loading zone, and whether we decide to block off parking here or here is one thing, but then a no left turn, that gives extra space for traffic, and it does mitigate some of the issues.
If we tell the businesses that the trucks go into our parking lot in the morning, most of them are delivering in the morning, not all, but generally.
A lot of it's during school time, and so the traffic is really thick.
So I'm just wondering if they go in that parking lot, they're just moving back and forth across.
Well, part of the
parking
reason
lot.
why the committee had originally recommended here is because an 18-wheeler getting into our parking lot is not gonna be
It's
very
gonna be
easy.
challenging. The short one will be able to get in, but not the long ones.
Yeah.
What about them parking up Stewart Street, to the left, when you get up there on, St. Charles and take the left? I've had some of them to pull over there, the tractor trailers, and they can unload and roll it back down. I think we need to make the truckers work a little bit instead of taking parking away.
I think the big problem is gonna be getting an 18-wheeler in here after this is done.
Oh, I have to bump that out, okay.
Yeah, because I think everybody agrees that bumping out this and this for the pedestrians to have a shorter distance and straightening out the crosswalk is pretty important. And once that's done, they'll be driving over that like crazy, breaking it apart if we allow an 18-wheeler to make that turn. That's part of the reason why the discussion was that you can have them there at a certain time, but at a certain time, you have to stop allowing the loading on that so vehicles can park there for.
What about down Evergreen also is another option, and roll it up the sidewalk like they do now, except they park on the other side of Broadway.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I graded that because I sit out there and watch it. I know everything. Kidding.
Yeah.
Dan, is there plans to fence similar to the middle island on the left side so you don't have kids just running out in the intersection? Keep them designated to walking across the crosswalk?
There are no, what kind of fence?
Well,
Like
it's
You're
gated.
picturing kids coming out of that place.
Well, I mean,
playing
like
out.
when we hang out outside of Odie's or whatever, you know, kids will kind of, that's just gonna be an invitation for people just to congregate on that island right there, I think. It's just my suspicion.
You're just talking about matching what's in the
Yeah.
middle.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, and then it would funnel people to the crosswalks, you know, like it does in the middle. And you have no choice but to walk across the crosswalk right there.
Yeah, and that's what was in phase 3. I think if you go down, that's where you lose those 2 parking places. Can you go to 3?
I think he's talking about.
I'm talking about
on the
in front of
phase
ours.
1, just
Oh,
putting a fence.
On that left side.
Like enclosing it, like.
Yeah.
Tell me if this is what you're talking about. This is what I understand you to be talking about, is to put up fencing around the perimeter here, except for the crosswalks, that would match what we
Yeah.
have there. Now, that wasn't put there for the crosswalks, but it could serve a purpose here that by
Yeah.
only
It just keeps
allowing.
people sequestered to the area they're supposed to be.
And
I
keeps
don't, and that's
cars
not
off
a
of it.
huge expense.
And keeps
Right.
cars off of it.
Yeah, and eventually a car's gonna crash.
Yeah.
You need a pipe welding.
Well, there's one
There's
now.
one he's already got, but we're
Well,
coming out.
again,
from-
that build out is really gonna have to be on the budget, because it's not in our funding right now for it, so,
So we can use committee action to go ahead and move forward with the striping plan today. Leave this item, well, no, we don't need to leave it in committee, we need to defer it to finance because it needs to be funded. For the infrastructure changes in orange, basically. And then we'll also have another funding piece for the second portion of this. So this item should come, I guess we could roll it all up into one, or do we want to vote on 3 different items? What's the will of the committee?
I think it could be split into 3. What
Yeah.
you authorize us to do with striping now, which is remove the left turn lane from the westbound of Oxford, and striping the side of Odie's there going up St. Charles. And then from that point, it's having the discussion with the businesses about where they would want the loading zone to be restricted and for what hours. And this could happen simultaneously, mind you. But then the 2 and 3 is getting phase 1 in play into a budget cycle, and then 3 would be getting the residential parking permitting in play, and that would, both of those are definitely budget items.
If you're voting for the restriping and everything else is going to budget, is that what y'all are talking about?
Pretty much, yes.
I think that can be one motion to send out
Okay.
the striping and everything else
Everything
gets
else
to
to
go
go
to
to
budget. I think you only need
One motion.
Okay,
And, oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. After you
And
can see her.
restriping is going to take out the center lane, right, and go ahead
It
and
gets
take
rid
out
of
the turn
left
lane.
turn lane on
Okay.
the westbound, not the
Okay.
eastbound, the
Right.
westbound.
Okay.
I really feel like we need to temporarily strike that first, because I worry that parking lot is large back there, and I know it's accessed from Broadway largely, but I worry we may have an inadvertent consequence of traffic backing up on Oxmoor, which already can be slow at certain peak times. Do you understand what I'm saying? If someone
Say it again,
stops to
because I
turn
don't-
left right there by Big Spoon,
Well, we're not allowing left. You're
I-
saying
I-
to pull into the parking area?
correct. If you're westbound and you stop at at the traffic light, but you want to turn into the alley, we're gonna have to make sure we hang left turn prohibited
Yeah.
to ensure no one makes that left turn. People are still going to do it because we can't control human behavior, at every turn. So I think the temporary striping would be something to try, just to make sure that it doesn't create a traffic nightmare.
Well, and they're also gonna turn left and park in front of Big Spin, right, into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. Can I look at phase 3 one more time and just say something?
Phase 3, Brian?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
So, yeah, the businesses are losing parking perpendicular to their doors. But we have safer parking strategies added here specifically, which is an additional more parking, and it's safer to park this way than pulling in there, because I've pulled in there for 30 years and it's awkward and it's dangerous pulling in there. They may have parking in front, but it is not
Safe
a
parking.
good place to pull into, period. And here we can do a turn lane going east, coming this way if we lose that turning lane, because the turning lane's no good anyway, because you get stuck there.
I don't
Yes.
disagree with what you're saying.
Okay.
I just have a question as to whether or not that parking right there is ours or if that is private property, because if it's private property, closing it off,
We can't do
we
it.
can't do.
It's private property.
It's
I've
private.
got
Oh,
that
it's
pulled up.
absolutely.
Yeah, so if it's private property, you can't.
It doesn't
So we can't really think about that part of the
Yeah,
phase.
you can't
anyway.
take the parking from them
Okay.
without compensating them.
So, but could we still do this
The
here?
first phase.
Well, we could do the bulb out in one,
Well,
because the parking is still there.
I guess I did have a question on that, because if we are doing the bulb out, you are effectively taking 2 spaces out, possibly 3.
There's one already gone right there by a pole.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Caleb, does
There's
this
an
eliminate
electrical-
these 2 spaces
Mhm.
behind it?
That one's already gone,
One,
your
because
finger.
one's already
It
blocked.
eliminates one,
Okay.
so
There's a pole.
Yeah, there's another hole.
All I'm saying is you
You
can't
can't do
take
that.
private property without,
Okay.
without compensating them. So whatever we do, we've got to talk with the
Okay.
owner of that property about it.
You know, I mean, to your point too, Counselor Nelms, I mean, a lot of this would take coordination with the businesses and discussion, but, you know, if there was some subsequent events which we're working on, like the access to the deck with Dawson, if that came on board and we're able to then enforce parking time limitations on the other surface spaces like that we purchased from the estate of Buddy Wade, and then there's kind of a shift where more business staff are parking in Dawson. This is more available for, you know, customers of the businesses, then possibly losing 7 isn't such a big deal. And if we can kind of talk to the business owners about actually them changing it to like a cafe style seating like across the road, it actually could be better for some of their businesses, at least the, you know, restaurant retail revitalization of the area.
Right.
So I don't think we can take it,
Right.
but we
They
could
can
discuss with
agree
them
to it.
about
That's not a
possibly
problem.
improving that area, and I think that
Yeah,
would be,
you can't, my only point was,
yeah.
I don't think you can
Take
vote on
action.
it until you
Yeah.
talk to those businesses, because we can't take them from the businesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they agree to it, fine, there's no problem with that, but I don't think we can implement something before talking to them, since that's private property.
I agree.
Yeah, and the scale could potentially be changed if need be.
Sure,
So, so I think the recommendation would be, so, committee, listen carefully. The first piece of this would be to recommend installation of roadway changes related to striping. The second would be referral of this item to, referral of the phase 1 plan for funding to finance. Step 3 would be referral, well, we can get a report on step 3. Step 3 will be the residential parking pass component that Mr. Adams will go through momentarily. So that will be the item that we will vote on. Do you want to give us a breakdown of the residential parking pass piece?
Well, I thought that would just go straight to the budget committee, because the bottom line is, we have a good group of people on the roads, basically 3 full roads, all the way to St. Charles and the first 2 roads going up St. Charles, supporting getting parking permits. Part of that would be to do parking enforcement across the city, managing the 3 hours, using part-time, hopefully retired police officers, reutilizing vehicles that we were going to put out for excess equipment, and be able to have that in the times that we see across the entire city, being able to enforce parking. And that way we would then be able to have residential parking. We haven't got a price back on the police software that allows them to go down the vehicle, that digitally date time stamps every vehicle as it drives by it, and be able to say, okay, at the 3-hour mark, whether or not that vehicle's passed its limit. And so that's a different piece. So on the residential parking permit piece, we would have to hire 3 to 4 officers. 3 part-time.
3 part-time officers. That would be a citywide. So basically, what would that look like for various parts of the city that would say, well, I want to get residential parking passes for this area? Or would it just be the entire city? You could just call in. And who would manage that at City Hall?
So right now, it's just the area that has been polled and validated that they have the majority on those streets. And that's in the area straight up St. Charles and the first 2 streets on that.
Highland and Irving.
And so, right now, that would be a council ordinance that says this is a residential parking permit area. In the software, we don't have the fine tuning on because there's different softwares that allow it to be, you know, the resident plugs in the information of the vehicle that's there, and that's a permanent one versus a temporary one of just a visitor coming in. And then you could have the stickers that they, or not stickers, but like badges type things that you can give to people who are doing construction work, contracted work, etc.
So that,
I was just saying, I just have a logistical question. I mean, I understand discussion and the relevance of enforcing, you know, parking times that we've set across the city. From my best understanding, these are, and we would hopefully look at part-time retired officers.
Yeah.
But my assessment is that we're talking about 2 different areas of town that have different parking issues at different times of day.
Yep.
So, are we really talking about having officers come in the evening to enforce parking problems in this area? And
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why we
versus downtown, it's throughout the middle of the day.
Correct.
You know, normal business hours.
It is to flex them because they're less expensive, and you could do it over the right amount of time. And depending on people's schedules, that's why we need 3. We didn't feel 2 was going to cover down enough.
Right.
And so in our conversation, 3 was the.
It's kind of daunting just listening to that. I think
Well, if you look at the
logistical
parking
standpoint.
enforcement problems we have around City Hall, there's vehicles that come here and stay here for a very long period of time.
Right, and that's why we set up years ago the 3-hour time limit.
Yeah.
So, what is the relief mechanism with the parking permit when someone is in, I guess, parked illegally?
Well,
With
we're
what
gonna
happens?
request a change in the fine in itself, bringing it up to something that is more reasonable.
Okay.
Because right now, it's basically feeling like, okay, well, that's my Russian roulette of a fee for parking anyway, if I was parking anywhere else in any other city.
So we fine based, not a towing.
Not
mechanism?
intended to be towing, it's
Okay.
intended to be fine.
Who is the designated responsible party at City Hall for issuing these permits and managing them? tracking
Well, right
them?
now, we're trying to see if the software will do it through the
Okay.
police department. If it doesn't do it,
Possibly.
then we will have a requirement that, and we want it to be 24/7, so we're looking at doing the police department.
Right. Management. So, Counselor Jones, I know you're occupied in something. Can I bend your ear for a moment? Counselor Jones. President Jones, I'm sorry. Now I got his attention. So, the third item will need an ordinance to make the changes needed. So we probably need to split that item off to be handled separately, because if the ordinance, depending on how it's handled, if it's passed, it still needs to be funded. If it doesn't pass, it does need to be funded.
Well, that's why I originally said this has to go to the budget cycle, because it's
But the
going to be
budget cycle, we
impossible to
can't pass
enforce
ordinance.
anything if I don't have those people.
Right, correct, but we can't, if we don't have the ordinance in place, there's no point in funding it.
You'd have to have it in both.
Right.
In both committees.
So, I would propose then the first 2 items, basically the striping and the Oxmoor, this should have been 3 freaking agenda items. We can move those to budget. We'll carry this, we need to vote on this item separately to be an ordinance to go out to council. Mr. Kendrick, is that correct? Or am I making a mess of this?
I'm really confused.
Yes, we need multiple agenda items.
For striping only, you don't have it. Need an ordinance. For any changes in pedestrian walkways or no parking areas, you absolutely have to have an ordinance. So I'm not sure that I understand Glenn's proposal.
We don't need an ordinance for to take the turn lane out, correct?
Not for the
Okay,
restriping, no.
so the restriping, we're good. So the other item related to phase one.
There was the only other one mentioned,
We already have
no
crosswalks
parking
approved.
next to Odie's. If you are going to change that from the loading zone ordinance that presently exists, you will have to have another ordinance.
Okay, so
When and if that's a part of what's being proposed.
we're gonna take all three of these items separately. And then we can redo the item numbers as needed, as they go through. The one that goes to council can stay 3404. So, committee, public safety committee, yes.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the temporary striping.
Okay, so the first item, I know this is probably convoluted.
Convoluted.
So item one is the striping solutions that will remove the turn lane and make other assorted changes, like as denoted on the PDF. That is our first item that we'll vote on. So we have a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Harden.
Temporary striping.
Warburton, Harden. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 5-0. So item number 2, we, without objection from the committee, we will refer the PDF
Potential-
design, we'll refer phase 1 to budget hearings. Okay, no objection from the committee? No, not a motion. We're gonna do the same thing Barry did in finance, so if we don't have an objection, we'll just push to finance. Or, I'm sorry, budget hearings.
Got it.
So 2 budget hearings. And so the third item, which I guess can just keep 340425, this is the item that will move on to council. Because I believe, and we may have to do some homework between now and next week to make sure that we've got our I's dotted and T's crossed. But this would be for a residential parking permit, ordinance related to all of that and the associated, whatever the other changes you wanna make, it's all mixed up in my head right now, to be reviewed by council. And then that item will also go to budget hearings. Okay? So the residential parking passes, residential parking districts and passes, is there a motion and a second?
Motion.
By Councilor Nelms.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Harden. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it.
So on this ordinance, there's a real enforcement ordinance, a provision that somebody's gonna have to help me understand what that's proposed to be.
Yeah,
See,
it sounds like we have to change it before we really entertain it anyway.
So here what I'm trying to say, that the reason why it has to go to budget hearing. You go to budget hearing, you authorize the ability to purchase hire the people.
That's the opposite order.
And then
Have to define it
before it
first.
gets in place, we'd have the ordinance go instead, go in and be done.
I feel like that's the cart before the horse. I would say we need to pass the ordinance, then figure out the funding mechanism personally.
You can't
Not on
enforce
the
the
committee, but I
ordinance.
tend to agree. Yeah. How can you budget something we haven't?
If you
defined?
pass an ordinance, you need to have the enforcement ability. That's what I don't understand.
Okay, so we have a loose agreement as to what it needs to be. Let's meet this week, figure it out, and if we need to push it from council back over here to committees, we'll do that next week.
Why not just push that one to the next committee meeting, and I will
We just had a
have-
motion and a second and pushed it to council,
Okay.
so. We'll work on the ordinance details. Mr. Kendrick, I'll reach out this week.
Somebody will have to help
Yes,
me,
yeah.
because I don't understand it.
So-
Today.
President Jones, did you have something you wanted to
I'll
add?
get Scott with me.
Sawyer.
Okay.
I'll get-
Okay.
Just leave him.
With that, public safety is adjourned.